Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is all about how to come out of a diet successfully. So for those of you guys who didn't watch my Operation Get My Body Back series, I will link the final episode in the description box so that you can watch and see my results from week 1 to week 16. So I did a 16-week long diet after having my daughter Kaya, basically just to lose some of the weight I put on while I was pregnant. So I will link that video down below if you want to see my results. And that was about 6 weeks ago, so I wanted to talk to you guys today about what I've been doing since then to make sure that I don't ruin all of my hard work and don't put on any weight, and I'm basically just going to share that with you guys today. Okay, so when I finished my diet, I actually had about a week where I did not track at all. And after tracking nearly every day for 16 weeks, this was so nice for me to not track anything at all. Now, what I will say is that not everyone is going to want to have a whole week. You might just want to have a couple of days, but I would just say take a couple of days where you don't track anything. You just eat, you don't binge, you don't go crazy, you just eat and you just enjoy food for what it is without having to sit and track and weigh out absolutely everything, because after you've dieted for so long, it is so relieving mentally just to have a couple of days where you're not tracking anything. So I would recommend it. How long you do it for is going to depend on your personality and how experienced you are. So for example, if you've got a really good knowledge of food and you've tracked a lot previously, not just in your diet but you've tracked for a couple of years, then you're going to have a pretty good idea of foods, what you're eating, and that kind of thing. So you could probably get away with doing a whole week or maybe even longer like I did. If it is your first time dieting, you've never really tracked before, you've not got a very good idea or knowledge about food, that's perfectly fine by the way. But if you haven't, then I would recommend probably only having 2 to 3 days where you don't track, just because you are more likely to either undereat or overeat, and we don't want either one. Now, during this kind of week or so where you're not tracking, you're just enjoying your food, I would still recommend weighing yourself in the morning first thing, just like you were doing when you were doing your diet. Now, I would recommend doing this just so that you make sure that your weight is not dramatically dropping or dramatically increasing, because that will mean you're either not eating enough or you're eating too much. However, if your weight is just decreasing a little bit, so nothing more than a kilogram or so, just a little bit each time you weigh, then that's perfectly fine. All that means is you're not quite eating at your maintenance yet. And the same if you flip it. If your weight has only gone up a little bit, so it's not going up dramatically, it just goes up a little bit each day, then that's perfectly fine. It's just your body readjusting to getting more food. It can just be down to you having more carbs than normal, which is making you hold a little bit more water, which has made your weight go up a little bit. So unless your weight has dramatically increased, don't suddenly start restricting again on your food. Don't worry about it. It's just your body trying to adjust to the food that it's now getting. So after your period of not tracking, whether that be for a couple of days or a whole week, then you are going to want to refine your maintenance calories. And what you need to bear in mind is that they are going to be lower than whatever your maintenance calories were before you started your diet. And that's because you weigh less now, so you don't need as many calories as you did before you started. And because you have been tracking, I would say just make a rough estimate as to where you think your maintenance is going to be. Now, depending on how you've dieted, this might be easier or harder. So for me, I had 4 high days, which were my old maintenance, and then I had 3 lower days, which is what took me into my deficit. Now, if you did watch my series, you'll know that partway through, I did bring my high days down just a little bit to where I thought my new maintenance would probably be. So all I did, my 3 lower days, I just brought up to those 4 high days, and that's where I took roughly as what I thought where my maintenance would be. Now, if you've done a diet where you literally just restrict every single day, then depending on how much of a deficit you've been in compared to your maintenance, so say it was 500 calories less, you probably want to go somewhere in the middle of that as to what you think your new maintenance would be. However, guys, what I will say is it is going to be a little bit of guesswork. So pick a number roughly where you think your new maintenance is going to be, and then you're going to have to stick with that number for a couple of weeks and monitor your weight at those new calories. And like I already did briefly touch on, your weight is going to fluctuate as your body gets used to the new amounts of food it's getting. So you are obviously eating more food than you were when you were dieting. That is the whole point. You don't want to stay in that restricted state. So we are eating more, so your body needs to process and get used to that. So your weight might drop a little bit while it's getting used to getting more food. It might still not quite be enough for a few days. Wait for your weight to come back up. And then on the flip, like I've already said, your weight also might increase slightly, and that can just be just because you're eating more carbs, you're eating more food, and therefore your body holds on to more water, which means your weight goes up. So don't worry about it. As long as it's not dramatically dropping or increasing, then you're probably about right with where your maintenance is. And if after a couple of weeks your weight is still dropping or still increasing a little bit too much, then you can just readjust by 50 to 100 calories either way to get where your new maintenance is. You do just need to remember that our weight does fluctuate on a day-to-day basis and throughout the day, and it's based on what we've eaten, what we've done. So don't worry about it if your weight is going up and down a little bit. As long as it's not dramatically going up and down, then that's absolutely fine. And then guys, once you've found your new maintenance calories, then bam, you're done, you're sorted. You know what your maintenance is. If you want to carry on tracking, then you can obviously keep tracking at your maintenance. Or if you don't want to track, you can eat a little bit more intuitively. But then if you notice that your weight is increasing or dropping, you can know that when you go back to tracking, you know where your maintenance is. So it does make it a lot easier for the future by knowing what your maintenance calories are and tracking every now and again, just to make sure you are keeping that baseline amount of calories. Now, the other thing I did want to touch on is cardio and reducing the amount of cardio you are doing. Now, this might not be for everyone. For some of you might be perfectly happy carrying on doing the amount of cardio that you were doing while you were dieting. For me personally, no. I did not want to keep it up. I didn't have anything against it. It wasn't too much for me, but I didn't want to keep that amount all of the time. So I did two things while I was dieting. I increased my steps, just day-to-day steps, and then I did also add in cardio at the end of my sessions, and on a fifth day as well I went and just did some cardio at the gym just to increase my calorie burn. So I have actually kept my steps nice and high. I'm somewhere between 8 to 12,000 on a day-to-day basis, anywhere within that range, and I wanted to keep that nice and high. But the bit that I did want to get rid of was the bit at the end of my session and my extra day at the gym. Now, getting rid of it is going to depend on how much you are doing, and obviously I can't speak for you guys, but for me, I was doing about 10 minutes at the end of each session, plus my fifth day at the gym for about 15 to 20 minutes. So what I decided to do was keep that fifth day and get rid of my other days. Now, I got rid of my other days all in one go, so the bits at the end of my session, just because it wasn't that much. If you were doing 30 minutes of cardio every day, I would not recommend getting rid of that much cardio like that. I would cut it down, maybe half again, and then get rid of it. Because I was only doing 10 minutes, which wasn't that much anyway, I was happy to just get rid of that straight away. And then once I got rid of that, I could then get rid of my fifth day. And now at the minute, my fifth day, if I feel like doing it, then I do. And if I don't feel like doing it, then I don't. And it doesn't really matter either way. I do still like to incorporate some cardio or some HIIT into my workouts, just for my cardiovascular health, just to keep my fitness level nice and high. So I don't mind doing that fifth day from time to time. But now I've made my workouts in the week shorter, and that is what I wanted. So that's how I would get rid of your cardio. Like I said, it's going to depend on how much you're doing in the first place, but probably halve it and then half it again if it is anything over 20 minutes. And guys, that does complete this video. Hopefully you found it useful. Just a few little things to bear in mind when you are coming out of your diet. I think a lot of people think that the diet is the hard part, and yes, it is, but you do not want to ruin all of that hard work by coming out of your diet like a crazy person. So how you come out of your diet is as important as your diet itself, just because you don't want to end up back to square one and have to do the whole thing over again. So hopefully this video helped. If it did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!